Here, Douglas is going to make an argument about you and your supposed anti-Americanism.
That is also a strain of anti-Americanism and anti-Westernism, which
Yeah.
is a belief that nobody in the world can do something wrong and bad unless we have somehow pushed them to it.
Yes, this is Noam Chomsky's gift to our politics.
Yes. It used to be on the left, and now it's on the right as well.
Yeah.
This is a profound and deep anti-Americanism, which I cannot sign up for. I will not. Profound anti-Westernism sees the world. Actually, funnily enough, Edward Said, to the extent that his theory on Orientalism holds at all, might have found this trend interesting, of Westerners now looking at the rest of the world and saying they can't do anything unless we make them.
Right.
Totally without any
Rob's
moral
agency of all the people you would otherwise
no
give
moral agency. And if there is an explanation for why somebody goes and blows themselves up and everyone that they can kill on a bus in Jerusalem, it's because of something to do with British mandate policy 80 years earlier. I completely reject this, and I reject it for many reasons. But one is that riding shotgun with the claim that only the West, only America can lead anyone to do bad things is what you rightly identify, Sam, as the utter inability to recognize that some people seek utterly different things than we do.
All right, your response?
I mean, look, this is just it's just batting down a straw man. I mean, it's like they don't ever, they kind of loosely claim that I'm guilty of this, but they can't point to anything I've ever said and then say this is an example of him being guilty of this. Nobody's making the claim that nobody else has agency and that only America can do wrong in the world. But at the same time, if we're just recognizing reality, America is the most powerful government in the history of the world. We are the world empire. And so we've been in charge of making a lot of very important decisions, particularly over the last 30 to 40 years, but really, from way before that. And so, it's such a cop-out to say that nobody else has agency. This is like, I don't remember if he said this during the debate, but I've gotten this a lot when I'd point out, like I said earlier in the show, that the U.S. poured $100 million into a street protest that in Ukraine that ultimately ended up overthrowing a democratically elected president, and that this was something that was seen as a big provocation to Vladimir Putin. Now, that doesn't deny any of the agency of the people on the ground. That doesn't mean that anybody there who was protesting couldn't have really had a beef with the Yanukovych government. But it's also worth pointing out that we poured $100 million into that. Like, that may have tipped the scales a little bit. And so it's not suggesting that nobody else in the world has ever done anything wrong, or suggesting that there aren't people who have very fundamentally different goals than we have. The point is that America has, particularly in the post 9/11 era, has embarked on a suicidal foreign policy that has been absolutely disastrous for our own country and for the regions where the theaters of war have taken place. It's not an anti-American position to say that. It's a pro-American position. I view this foreign policy as degrading my country that I care about very much. And, the idea that there's like this strand of anti-Americanism, I mean, that certainly is true. Certainly it permeates the left, like a strong anti-American bias. But again, that just doesn't apply to me. Just doesn't apply to me at all. I think America is the greatest country in the world. I think there's a million great things about America. I think that a lot of times these guys fall into the old Frederick Bastiat false dichotomy of being unable to separate society from the state. And so there's some idea here that, like, what if I'm critical of Joe Biden, does that mean I hate America? Like, what do you mean by that? Do I hate like the people and the mountains and the culture no, I just hate this one corrupt senile guy who's in DC exercising power over the rest of us. And that's true for the Democrats and Republicans. And I think that they deserve the contempt that I have for them. So I don't know. I mean, I find this all to be a giant straw man. Nobody's denying that anybody else has agency, but there is responsibility from our government. Listen, like Washington, D.C. is the most goddamn corrupt place in the world. Who, after all these years, could deny that at this point? And so I don't know. I think it's a cop-out from dealing with the actual arguments being presented and a straw man.
Yeah. And as I have said before, I'm not a foreign policy expert. I'm still making my mind on these things. I've never publicly talked about foreign policy. I've never said anything pro-Israel or anti-Israel. But as we're talking, and I listen to all Ben Shapiro's, Dave Rubin's. I've been on their podcast many times talking about things we agree on that you agree on as well. But one thing that I'm just seeing, generally speaking, as I'm learning and hearing you talk, is a potential blind spot with people like Sam Harris and Douglas Murray. And I don't hear them talk a lot about some of these disastrous foreign policy decisions that you talk about. And if you're wrong, I would love to see them articulate why you're wrong on that. And I don't see that happening either.
Well,
I'd love to see them grapple more with these things.
Well, they advocated for them, and so that's a big part of the reason why they don't want to talk about that, because they don't want to look at their own track record. But I'll tell you, man, this is Douglas's problem, really, in this new marketplace, in this new landscape. Track record is a lot more important than any of his appeals to expertise or being there or whatever. It's like, what's your track record though, dude? That's how I've blown up and gotten the platform I have. Is I just have a good track record on this stuff. I've been right about so many of the most important things. I was good on Russiagate being bullshit from the very beginning. I was good on COVID from the very beginning. I was good on Ukraine from the very beginning. I was good. Like, it's just, these guys supported the warfare machine. They supported all of these wars, and they've got no real counter to it. When I said to when I said to Douglas in the debate that we've been at war for 25 years and it's killed millions of people, including thousands of our own, bravest young men, that it's cost us $8 trillion and done nothing but destabilize the region and blah, 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 and degraded our country. All he could do was quibble with the fact that I said we're at war and go, well, you say we're at war, but we're not at war. Like, he's got no real substantive response to any of that. And so, I don't know if it's a blind spot. It seems like a willful blind spot to me. They always just want to come around to just blame those Muslims. It's all their fault. There's no responsibility. But, it's like, so they could say that I'm taking agency away from all of them, but it seems like to me quite the opposite. You're denying the agency of the most powerful government in the history of the world.
Before we go to the last clip, just on that point, because you've done a deep dive into this, it seems like on Douglas's track record, his old column. So you said he was in favor of the intervention in Libya. What other ones? Was he in favor of Iraq? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, Ukraine, and now Gaza. I know for sure he's been all in on America backing those wars or fighting those wars.
Yeah, and feel free to pick one example if you want, but just generally speaking, what was the kind of like what was he arguing in those columns? Generally speaking, about Iraq, Libya, what was like the tenor?
That Gaddafi was about to go genocidal. He was about to kill all his own people, even though the guy had been in power for many decades and never done it, and there was no reason to suspect he was going to. He argued all the basic things that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, that we'd be greeted as liberators, that all the standard neocon talking points from the time, all the war propaganda that turned out to be completely wrong, totally based off lies. He either fell for it or knowingly spread lies.
And for the people who were supporting and defending, say, the intervention in Libya and where Libya is right now with the reemergence of slave markets, economic destabilization, all these things, is there any argument or any point some of these people who supported this say, like, oh, at least we don't have this, or like is there any argument that they say now?
No, they just go, oh, there was a real concern that he was going to go genocidal, and we did it for humanitarian reasons. That's what Douglas Murray tried to argue. But again, I pointed out back to him, and he had no response to this, that it's like General Wesley Clark and all of the neocons kind of already admitted that this was already the plan years before. And the plan was, this is all the clean break strategy. And anybody can go read the document for themselves. The clean break memo was written by Richard Pearl and David Wormser in a letter to Benjamin Netanyahu, that this was the new strategy going forward. It was our project for a new American century, was that we were going to go around and remake the Middle East and topple all of the governments who were enemies of Israel. And that way, they could have a clean break with the two-state solution. And that way, Israel would never have to honor their promises to give the Palestinians a state, because really the thing that was the reason why they felt they had to was because they thought it was the only way they could normalize relations with the broader Arab and Muslim world. But you don't need to normalize relations if you get the U.S. to just go overthrow all of your enemies. And that's what we've been embarking on. And that's why they overthrew Gaddafi.
Right. Interesting.